right, so Vice decided it was a good idea to diss Battlefield 5 for quote unquote selling Nazi stuff. Okay, Vice, I'll give you that much for now. Going into this is unscripted. I'm just kind of saying what my thoughts are while I'm reading this article, which I came across a couple days ago on my way back from work. And I kind of was like a bit confused as to why they would even bother doing this. Like, don't get me wrong, I give crap to Battlefield for all the stupid stuff it's done, but this is like next level stuff. And I've been watching Vice for a long time on YouTube, and personally, I think they are somewhat credible for the most part than other like big name media outlets or whatever. Like Vice is pretty consistent. Sometimes they're a little bit on and off, but for the most part, yeah. Well, let's just start reading this thing. Okay, so Battlefield 5 is selling Nazi stuff, and it's really weird. Okay, that's a good clickbaity line. Microtransactions are amplifying an inherent tension in historical shooters to an uncomfortable degree in EA's World War II game, Battlefield 5. Okay, yes, microtransactions are pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, but they're amplifying an inherent tension. What does that mean? Is it stressing you out? Does it bother you? Like, I don't get it. Also, the artist is Jordan Peterson, not Jordan Peterson. Update. After Vice published the story, EA reached out to announce that it is changing Wilhelm Frank's name so the character no longer shares a name with the anti-fascist. Okay, so that was one of the main things of the article stated. I read it before, so this is my second time, and this guy right here, the Phantom of the Opera, his name is Wilhelm Frank. Not to be confused with Wilhelm Frank, the apparent anti-fascist hero. I mean, it's just a simple name mix-up. You could really just... It's not like they're saying that this guy is that, but okay, I kind of get what they're saying. So, for now, I'll just give it to Vice on this one. Battlefield 5 is a strange beast. It's a fun, visually stunning World War II shooter that's kept... Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this guy plays Battlefield for the most part. So that's good. Most of these idiot journalists don't even play the games that they rack on. So it's good to see that someone's played nearly 200 hours of this. And it's got me thinking about the difficulties inherent in handling playable Nazis in a way that all my time in various Call of Duty and Medal of Honor games never did. How? Really? I mean, it's simple. You're playing as the Allies or you're playing as the Axis. Not really something to be doubting your whole existence on, but alright, I'll give that one to you again, Vice. For some reason, in the past, having playable Nazis in multiplayer World War II shooters felt mechanically necessary, nothing more. This may be because microtransactions and customizable online avatars didn't become the norm until recently. Okay, so this is where it kind of starts taking a bit of a turn, and I understand. So here's what he's trying to say for you that haven't grasped this. The person here, Jordan Pearson, is he's uncomfortable that people could essentially purchase cosmetic items related to the Germans, or to the Nazis in this case. For a comparison here, I'll open up the armory here in Battlefield. So you got the soldiers. Right now it's only a few. This guy, Diving Rod, he's an Axis soldier. He's a German soldier, as you can see. Mostly historically accurate for the most part. But here's the catch, okay? DICE didn't put any swastikas or any sort of Nazi imagery into the game. Like the Reichsadler, the eagle with the swastika, that's not in the game. The closest thing is the badge on the M43 field cap. That one kind of has that. At the top of the cap right there, see, that's where you'd have the Reichsadler and the cockade. Yes, I've studied German uniforms and Allied uniforms for a long time, so yes, I know my stuff. And to even a certain degree, you got like the officers' caps that aren't really even accurate. The Demolisher one just has the cockade, but it doesn't have the Reichsadler. And the Baron von Zorn also has the cockade, but it has an iron cross instead. Which, by the way, looks kind of dumb. And the Canis Horribilis, same thing. But the cap's still the same. Like you can tell, that's a German officer's cap. Whatever the reason, things have gotten really weird with Battlefield 5 Nazi-themed microtransactions. There it is again, Nazi-themed. It's not really Nazi-themed. You don't see these guys in full like SS uniforms. You don't see uh, Totenkopf on on their caps or anything. You don't see the SS runes on their uniforms. So I just don't get it. Yes, the Nazis, the Germans were the Nazis back then in World War II, but they weren't all Nazis. That's what I'm trying to get at. You can't really put the two together, right? Like what this guy's doing. And he says it starts with the guy named Wilhelm Frank, which was recently introduced, I think 2 weeks ago, as a purchasable elite, which is overpriced to be fair. And then they go on about how the real anti-fascist from the city of Dresden in Germany. Okay, and here it is. In Battlefield 5, presumably thanks to an oversight, as in this game is not real people. Billy Bridger isn't real. Wilhelm Frank isn't a real Nazi officer. Some of these people, like, they think they just correlate it to real life, but most of these games have a disclaimer because dumb people like this exist. Anyways, let's keep going. Okay, so yes, this guy, the Phantom of the Opera cost $10 to get. Like I said, he's overpriced. Just looking at this guy is like, I mean, he looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie for the most part, but the stupid prosthetic just kind of throws it off. They should have at least given him an officer's cap. And here's his intro, which is really dramatic too, by the way. I just kind of like it. Got all these Allied soldiers in the back, and he just whoop, pulls out his Luger, starts shooting. He's very calculating and precise. And there's this guy, but it also shows him that he's like, let them bleed kind of guy. Again, I wouldn't purchase this because it's overpriced and I just don't really like the whole aesthetic of it. So that's just my thing. Now, the other gripe that this guy has is that there's something deeply and undeniably off-putting about making Nazis look like cool and desirable characters for profit. Is it really, though? The guy looks like the Phantom of the Opera. I just don't really see what's so, like, deeply and undeniably off-putting. Like, I mean, it's not real. That's the big issue here. This isn't real. It's a game made by a Swedish studio portraying the Allies and the Axis fighting a historical conflict. But it's not, these aren't real people. So that's just what I don't understand. But people keep doing it and complaining because I guess it's a slow news day. It's bizarre because Battlefield 5 has otherwise gone to some lengths to sap most of the Nazism out of World War II. You won't spot a swastika in the game. And terms like Hitler and Nazi are banned in chat, which I honestly think is kind of stupid. Because not only can people get around that some way, but censorship in your games is kind of a little bit like, especially when it concerns things like this. Because I'm not one to really censor at all, really, especially things that people should know about, like the Nazis, for example. You have to know that these were the bad guys. You have to know why we fought them, and you have to know what they did. That's how I see it. That's how I see most of these movies and games and books and things you read, things you see, because it's important. This history is important to us. Today, in this moment in history, we're living in a very peaceful time. We're not at war with the entire world. No one's killing each other in masses, and we're not under threat of nuclear annihilation. So that's 3 big pluses, not to mention the incredibly, like, the science of medicine that's come so far where we're not dying at age 30. But I digress. Let's keep going to see what this guy has to say. Dice even added women and people of color to both Allied and the Nazi fighting factions in the name of inclusivity and diversity. All these decisions inspired vitriol from the reactionary video gamers. Okay, so this statement's pretty neutral because it's true. Of course, I'm kind of against adding things that really shouldn't be there, but like I said, I digress. I don't want to start a raging nuclear fire again. So let's continue. One could be, and before I continue, yeah, you won't spot a swastika in the game. Yes, that's also true. Like, the actual flag that the Germans use, the Axis, is a variant of the Weimar flag that was used before the Nazis took power. But this is what a lot of people don't know. It's also the same flag that they used back in Battlefield 1942, I believe. I think it was 1942. I know the flag that they used it. And in a way, it's kind of a throwback, and in a way, it is kind of a bit of censorship. So it's like half and half, but I can see why they did it. So I let that one slide for now, because a lot of games also do this. So I'm not gonna start on which games, but if you look it up, you'll know. One can be forgiven for presuming that these steps meant that Battlefield 5 was doing its best work within the limitations of the World War II shooter genre to avoid glorifying Nazis and their ideology. Again, just showing it isn't glorifying it. You're not promoting nationalist, socialist ideology. You're not saying Hitler is great. You're not saying the Nazis are great. The game does a great job of doing that. Even in the campaign mission where you play as a German tank commander, it does a fantastic job of staying neutral and not glorifying the Nazis. Well, I don't really call it neutral. The guy is like fighting for his home country. But, like I said, let's continue. The Wilhelm Frank avatar, besides being an affront to the real-life man, is the opposite of whatever restraint DICE might have been going for with their in-game... That's a confusing sentence, I'll just skip it. In their endeavors to entice players to spend money on stepping into Frank's jackboots. Okay? EA spokespeople, okay, that doesn't apply anymore, they already responded. And so now we have a situation where officially talking about Nazism is banned in a game crawling with Nazis, although anybody committed to being a racist neo-Nazi troll can easily get around the chat filter. Or just people on the internet in general. Have you seen Xbox Live? Have you go into a Modern Warfare 2 server on 360, you won't last 5 seconds. Trust me. At the same time, DICE has to make Nazi soldiers desirable in some way so players will want to spend money on cosmetic items, which you still shouldn't do, but whatever. And so if you have the money, you can enjoy the fantasy of being a Nazi death god in a designer overcoat. You're telling me that this guy is a Nazi death god in a designer overcoat. Let me give you a bit of history. All the generals were issued this sort of overcoat, for one. This guy looks like he's a pretty high-ranking officer. You could tell by the coat, the pants, and the cords that he's got. But I'll give it to you. I'll give you that designer overcoat part. The Nazi death god part, I mean, this guy isn't necessarily Reinhard Heydrich. I don't know if you studied your history, Mr. Jordan Pearson. But if anything's close to that, it's Reinhard Heydrich. And he died in Prague in 1942 from being assassinated by partisans. But let's see what else you have to say. It's just weird and feels completely different than, say, Wolfenstein 2's approach to stylized Nazis, which is you kill them because they are evil. That game has more swastikas on display than Battlefield 5, and it literally features Hitler in one fantastic scene. It is, you could step on his face, it's funny. But it knows which side the player is on. So, let me get this straight. So, I play Wolfenstein as BJ Blazkowicz, crushing Nazi skulls in with my bare forearms because they're the size of watermelons, and I'm the good guy. Okay, I can see that. Nazis are bad. I play Battlefield 5. I play as the Allies. One match. Okay, yeah, we're finding the bad guys. Playing as the Allies, the good guys. Okay. But as soon as the next round starts and I play as the Axis in this case, they're not even really called the Germans, but whatever. Would that automatically make me a evil Nazi that wants to exterminate all the Jews and take over the world and spread nationalist socialist ideology? I've been playing this game since launch. It's been about 7 months, and I see no Nazi banners in my room. I am not hailing Hitler every day. I don't keep a small framed picture of Hitler in my nightstand. So, it's kind of safe to say that, this is kind of bullcrap. It's kind of like you just gotta look at it this way. You play the game, and you know which side you're fighting on, right? It's a game. You're playing as that faction, right? If I play as the Germans, I know that the Germans are the bad guys. That's the difference. It's like any other game where there's antagonists, where there's enemies. You know they're the bad guys, right? Unless you are that easily influenced where as soon as the match starts, you grow a Hitler mustache, there's a peaked cap on your head, and all of a sudden, your right arm is going crazy, hailing at a 45-degree angle. Mr. Pearson, I'm calling you out personally. If you do this, please either go to the library and read some history books, check out a few books, they're free. Or check yourself into a psychiatric ward because I am very concerned for your mental health, my friend. And continuing on with the Wolfenstein 2's approach to stylized Nazis, that game actually got flack for showing so many swastikas, and people are saying, I think it's a little excessive and I might even be glorifying it. I don't even know where to start on that controversy, and not gonna do it because the game's about a year old, and it doesn't matter because I stepped on Hitler's face and it was hilarious. I like Battlefield 5 a lot. It's a great game that I play all the time, having played a ton of multiplayer World War II shooters over the year. I also understand that any game where half of the players have to be the bad guys is going to come with some baggage, but the added layer of microtransactions and elite skins has heightened those inherent contradictions to an uncomfortable degree. I mean, it kind of hasn't. I mean, they're microtransactions, but you don't have to buy it. You don't have to pay 990 boins. You could just play the game normally. And even then, like, the customization's so toned down, which in a way I kind of complained about. Like, for example, let's take a look at some of my characters, right? This is my assault guy. He's got an M38 gas mask, a Stahlhelm, and a standard pretty much uniform. It's historically inaccurate, but you could tell this is a German soldier. He has also got a Gewehr 43. They've got German equipment. You could tell these guys are Germans, right? Moving on, you got my medic. Same deal mostly. He's got an MP40, he's got an officer's cap, and a gas mask too. The distinctive canister. You can tell this guy's German, all right? But at the same time, have you noticed any single sort of thing that glorifies the Nazis? Because I haven't. My personal favorite, my support player, he's got the standard M43 field cap. I've kind of made him look like Afrika Korps. Most pretty bare bones, honestly. He's missing the Reichsadler, which would be on his chest here. He's also missing like any sort of rank, any sort of cuff. What do they call the cuff things where it's got the unit name and stuff. I'll show you. But other than that, I mean, pretty bare bones, right? And then you got my scout, German Kar 98. Yes, I use all Germans' weapons because they're pretty cool. Okay, shut up. But at the same time, again, pretty standard equipment. No swastikas, no marks, nothing glorifying. There's no animation I could give this guy to make him higher, which would be kind of funny, but like I said, I digress. At most, the tanks and other vehicles have the Balkenkreuz, the Iron Cross on the side. Like, that's just standard marking for that. Again, I guess most people don't find the Balkenkreuz offensive. The planes don't have, like, for example, like the BF-109 does not have the tail swastika. You can't really get a good angle for it, but they don't have the swastika on the back of the in the tail. Okay, I kind of understand that. Most games don't even really have that. It's rare. And going back on Mr. Pearson's whole inherent contradictions that are to an uncomfortable degree, that are heightened to an uncomfortable degree. Okay, so let's go back to my support player. Out of the entire uniform that he has, I myself have the pants, the Afrika Korps pants, and the Afrika Korps jacket. Because I'm a collector. I collect historical surplus, historical pieces, everything. I also have a few caps modeled after the M43, which is my favorite piece of headgear of all time. I also have one on the way that I ordered for my birthday with the whole Bevo insignia embroidered that has the Reichsadler and the cockade. Am I a Nazi, Mr. Pearson? Does that make me a Nazi for having these things? Well, let's see. What you gotta look at it. What's a Nazi? it's a bad guy that started World War II and killed a lot of Jews. Okay, that's part of it, but you also got to look at the more deeper underlying causes of what a Nazi is. Causes, I'm not sure that's the right word, but whatever. It's unscripted. Shut up. I am not a nationalist socialist. I don't promote any sort of ideology. I don't hail Hitler. I don't do any of these things. If I don't do anything that the Nazis do, would I still be considered one for just having a piece of history? Granted, the ones I have also don't have any sort of insignias or markings or anything because they didn't have them. But you could still tell if you do your homework, like I have been doing since 4th grade, and I've studied these uniforms. I could tell right away. Boom, that's a German uniform of World War II. More specifically, an Afrika Korps one. But it's not. But just knowing these things won't make me a Nazi, right? Also. So Mr. Jordan Pearson of Vice, I am concerned for your mental well-being and would really like you to get your mental status checked. And if that doesn't work, the library with all these wonderful books is a good alternative. It'll probably be less painful. Just go to the library, check out a few books. Might be a little heavy considering how many books you'd have to get in order to catch up, but whatever. You also got the internet, which is a wonderful source of free information. You have so many things you could learn. You could watch YouTube videos on this stuff. You just go on Wikipedia. You could look at forums. You could go to Reddit even. You just got to know the difference. Okay? So, I'm recording this on D-Day. So, in a way, this is kind of... I wanted to do a D-Day video, but I guess I'm doing this instead. But, like, relating to D-Day, there's the movie Saving Private Ryan. I was looking up some trivia yesterday. I was looking at what people were saying about it. And that movie's also, like, a lot of war movies usually aren't on the German side. There's very few of them. And the few of them that are, if you've seen Der Untergang, Downfall, I highly recommend you watch that, regardless of your views, regardless of how much of a wuss you are, to educate yourself. There's also another, it's a miniseries. It's on Amazon Prime, I think. You could watch it on HBO, I'm not sure. It's called Generation War, also from the German perspective. Das Boot, also from the German perspective. But, see, what a lot of people complain about, mostly foreigners, mostly non-Americans, is that it's just like games. You're usually glorifying the Allies. They're just great. Oh, the Americans won the war. Blah 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 blah. Like, we're so perfect, and the Germans are the bad guys. But that's kind of what you think. Like, you just see that and you think that automatically, right? Because that's kind of how it went. But that's not the whole thing. There was good people on both sides. Maybe not the SS, but it's not like most of these people wanted to fight. No one wants to go to war. No one wants to see their homeland destroyed. No one wants to see their friends die. No one does that. And what kind of stuck out to me when I was reading some of this trivia was does this demonize the Germans? Does this demonize the Wehrmacht in this case? Because they weren't SS units until later, and no one likes the SS because they really were the bad guys. But I digress. And what someone said, I think, but the article said, the small little trivia article said that regarding this is that it kind of showed them at a distance. Like, the Germans were just an enemy on the distance. When they land on the beach, you don't really see the Germans up close. You don't see them laughing and celebrating that they're slaughtering the Rangers as they're getting up the Higgins boats. There's some shots where you could see them, yes, up close, but they're very generic, I guess you'd say. Like, a couple of scenes where you could see them shooting, but you can only see them from behind. Some you can only see the MG-42s firing out of the murder holes, the bunkers. And throughout the whole movie, you don't even really get to see the Germans up close. I think the closest you get to see them is, the first time is probably a little bit after the beach, when they're in the town, and one of the walls falls over, and they're literally feet apart, yelling at each other, aiming their guns at each other. It's like Like I said, Saving Private Ryan, great movie. Everybody should see it. Just bloody amazing. But what stood out to me was when he said the enemy in the distance. I was like, you know what? That's true. Because they don't... Like, Saving Private Ryan was trying to be filmed more like a documentary. And I kind of could see it. It didn't really hold its punches too much in most areas. I mean, for crying out loud, the beach scene is probably one of the most realistic depictions of war. According to actual veterans that were there, that walked out of the theater because they said, it's like I was there again. That's how realistic that scene is. But like other movies where the few that have the German perspective, like for example Das Boot, doesn't... Personally, haven't seen Das Boot, I've only seen bits and pieces, but what the article said was that it also didn't demonize the Allies and glorify the Nazis. Why? Because they're the enemy in the distance. When the U-boat torpedoes a ship transport, they're not celebrating, they're not chanting Heil Hitler, they're not waving their Nazi flags around in celebration. That's just their job. That's just what they're doing. They're there for a reason. And, you know, they're just glad that they got their mission over with and they're still alive. Because if they would have missed or something, or one of the escort ships would have spotted them, Das Boot, that U-boat, is going to be a very sunken U-boat. And they wouldn't want that. But most of these people didn't go. I could see it. Some were indoctrinated, yes. The whole clean Wehrmacht thing isn't a real thing. A lot of them committed atrocities without any affiliation to the Waffen-SS or, you know, the entire Nazi party. They committed atrocities. And yeah, our side did it too, here and there, probably. But there are very rare occasions. There were nothing like outlandish. Maybe shot a prisoner or two, but weren't, you know, gassing entire villages and things like this. But I digress. That's not what this video is about. Not about the atrocities of the war. I might do that some other time, but not now. And going back on it, like for example, Der Untergang, the downfall. That one takes place in the last days of World War II. It's from 3 different perspectives, and it's a German film too. So you know, it's kind of got some relation to it. But there's nothing held back either. There's the swastikas are all there, the language is all there, the things they did they're all there, and it just shows everything like it is. Because this whole stupid idea of, oh, the winners are the ones that write history. While that might be true, just gotta let go of that notion, like I did. I don't see it like that anymore. After studying all this for years, I just don't look at it that way anymore. Why? Why do you think that's the thing? Because I know we're the good guys. I know the Germans, the Nazis, the Axis powers. I know that we're the bad guys. There's not one day that goes by where I thought, you know what? Maybe the Germans are fighting for the right reason. Maybe we should have not gotten involved. Maybe we should have let them win. No, I just don't think like that. And I know we were the good guys. I know what we were fighting for. The British, the French, US, all the countries involved, all the allies. I knew we were the good guys. Never in my mind have I doubted these things, because I've studied it. If the Germans would have won the war for some turn of events, if the Axis would have completely just decimated the Allies and taken over the world, that history would be entirely different. And depending on your views, like at the time, like let's say, like I've been watching Man of the High Castle, so this kind of ties into that. If you would be let's say a German-born kid in the 1950s after the Germans had won, and you would see all these things that they have built, like all these massive concrete structures with all the swastikas and all the banners everywhere, and all these officers and everything on like broadcast, all the propaganda. You would think, yes, that was us. That we're the good guys, and the Allies were evil. But that doesn't mean that they were the good guys. That's the big, major, inherent difference between the two. In a universe where the Axis would have won, them winning and writing their own the history the way they wanted to would not mean that they were good in the end. They could have portrayed themselves as good, but they weren't good. In our universe, where the Allies won, and we say it like it is for the most part, I don't really think there's been a case where I've been like, I read something about a battle and I read later on or something, find out on like a conspiracy forum that it turns out that it was all fake or it was all made up by the Allies to seem good. Because we don't really needed that. Because we, in the end, when we won, we were the good guys. We fought for what was right. We fought for freedom, liberty, democracy, all these things that we stood for, that the Germans and the Allies and that the Axis didn't. You really think the Nazis, the Italians, the fascist Italians, my bad, and the Imperial Japanese would have, loved to see what the world is like right now? They would be throwing up, clawing their own eyes out, ripping their own hair out, because they would not be able to stand a world where they can't control everything. And that is the greatness of the Allies winning the war. We didn't carve up the whole world into us and them. After World War II, granted the Cold War started, which is kind of bad, but still. After World War II, the world was peaceful again, for the most part. And right now, where I'm sitting right now, June 6, 2019, on the 75th anniversary of D-Day, the world is very peaceful. And I am glad it is that way. It is because of people like the ones that landed on D-Day and the Allies that fought against the evils of fascism that I get to do this. And you too, Mr. Jordan Pearson, you get to write articles that, even though they are misconstrued and a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Mistargeted? I really don't see, like, I can see what you're trying to get at with, like, people would spend real money on cosmetic items, digital cosmetic items in a game resembling actual Nazi uniforms, even though they lack insignia and such. I mean, have you seen reenactments, dude? I don't think you've seen reenactments where people are literally wearing full officer uniforms with all their medals and everything. I've seen reenactments where there's Waffen SS as well. Have you seen movies too? That goes back to what I was saying earlier. So I don't know what this guy wants. He just talked about it, but in none of this did he state like he just said it was bothering him a lot, which it really shouldn't. It really shouldn't, dude. So yeah, I guess I'll end it here. I've been ranting for about half an hour, and I feel kind of good about myself. I mean, I'm gonna let it all out. I've been holding this in for the entire day. I've been at work trying to see how I could word everything, but yeah, don't let things like this that aren't even real or just things in general even get to you. Because in the end, you're just wasting your time. People that get offended are just uncomfortable to a historical degree. You're just wasting your time. And instead, you should use that time to educate yourself, to study these things, to know the who's, the why's, the where's of why all this happened. But that's just the glory of this society that we live in. That you and me can have differing opinions, and we can have a civilized dialogue without having to shoot each other over trenches. So yeah, I'll end it here. So if you stuck around, thank you for watching. You're all fantastic. And I'll see you some other time that doesn't involve me ranting. Hopefully.